Welcome everybody to our fourth in this series. We'll start in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining us.
Josh, you can see the deck. Okay.
I sure can. Sorry, I was on mute there.
No, that's okay. Oops. I don't know why I lost you in the frame. Can't see you.
Once again, folks, welcome. I'm Josh Wallet with Wallet Solutions. We're still a minute or so out, but thank you for joining us today for our fourth in our four-part series with ValueLink. We'll start in just a few minutes. Welcome everybody. I am Josh Wallet with Wallet Solutions. Glad to have you here today. We are here for our fourth in our four-part series titled Data Analytics, Operational Impact. And so I am joined today by Cindy Harris, and she'll be able to introduce herself in a few minutes. I'm just going to start us off, get us started, and then Cindy's going to lead us in today's discussion. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the live presentation, for recording this live presentation for replay anytime. Again, I'm Josh Wallet. I'm owner and principal consultant of Wallet Solutions. If you're on this call, chances are you already know that valuation is changing, and you're trying to maybe figure out what that means for your company, for you individually, for your clients, for the entire ecosystem around you. And so we're not talking abstract and general and high level. We're talking about workflows. We're talking about review processes. We're talking about appraiser panels. And we will talk about some of those types of aspects today. And we have talked about some of those in previous sessions in this series. So Wallet Solutions, we work across the valuation ecosystem, and not a day goes by or a week goes by where internally we're not talking about that entire ecosystem: the lenders, the AMCs, the appraisal firms, the individual appraisers, even the regulators and technology providers. So connecting all of it so we don't have that weak link in the chain. And we tend to see these changes from every seat at the table. So that's the perspective we want to bring to you today. So if we, you can see a little bit about me there. Instructor, USPAP instructor for appraisal standards. I've served on state board, and really provide really a broad range, the company does, in terms of support around compliance, education, review, valuation, and investigations. And you'll see a bit of information on this next slide about Cindy. We have some similar qualifications and experiences, and then we also really complement each other. So you might hear some different perspectives as we move through today. But chief appraiser, chief ops officer, leadership, and has been a credentialed appraiser for 32 years. She beats me by a few years. So she wins in the appraisal experience there. But we go on to the next slide. You'll just see a little bit of our disclosure before we move on, and feel free to head to our website to learn a little bit more. But we're not here representing any sort of board or organization. We're here representing ourselves. We're not here as an appraisal management company. We are not an appraisal management company. And of course, we're not giving any sort of legal advice. And what you can expect today is about an hour of presentation and discussion. Please ask questions in the chat. Give your feedback, give your perspectives. We want to be able to answer your questions. And as with all of our presentations, we value professionalism. We ask that there be no reproductions. And any materials that relate, we will have them posted in the same site that you used to get in here today. So, Cindy, how have I done? Have I covered what we need at the beginning, and you're here to lead us through this discussion?
I think so. Thank you. Yeah, so I think today we'll end up in some regard a summary of kind of the sessions we've gone through, but talking about it from a little bit different vantage point, because there's just a lot to this change. And from quickly from what I'm hearing is we really have some momentum going, and there's lots of 3.6 files going through now. We have 4 new job aids on the GSE sites, which are kind of rising to the information that we've discovered and things that we need and so forth. So that information is great. And just a side plug before I start is keep checking out those announcements and the GSE sites, because they will give you really up-to-date information on how things are going and lessons learned specifically right to the appraisal, and I'm sure also to some lender specifics as well. But for today, let's tackle these 5 particular things. Why is valuation modernizing? What tools are contributing to that modernization? Property data and the improvements with it, quality of product and the appraiser's responsibilities despite all of this modernizing and technology. Then operations, adoption, and implementation. I think we've hit on this in every session, but it's really at the heart of being able to execute on 3.6, right? Getting through the operational changes, adopting, and then really implementing and practicing and working out the kinks. And I just mentioned what's on the GSE site, and I would also say, kudos to them, because they're putting those lessons learned out there, which means we're working together. It's a fluid process, and we all need to combine that information, pay attention to it, and collaborate. And so, good for all of you for being here in this collaborative environment. And we are a smaller group right now, at least at the beginning here. So please feel free to make it interactive as you wish. And then lastly, we'll talk about analytics and then the future evaluation, which I think Josh agrees with me, but it's I think we're positioned well to elevate our profession.
Great.
So for the catalyst for modernization. So as appraisers, I think we're used to hearing that, how fast can you do it? What's your fee and what's your turn time? I mean, how many times have you heard what's your fee and what's your turn time? Or asked it, right? And because, we're trying to figure out how we can take care of the customer. And the customer, may or may not be price sensitive, but the loan agent might be, or maybe that's what they feel is their competitive advantage. And so there's a lot involved in all of that. And what those expectations are and how fast people get things today, right? You can use, and I think Josh is becoming a wizard with Claude and different tools, but I mean, it's the speed at which you can get things done is is continuing to increase. So the expectations continue to rise with that, getting things so quickly. And then property data availability. So we're just now, I shouldn't say that. I said many of us are just now looking at how to change the inspection for UAD 3.6. But anyone who was doing hybrids prior was taking in these property data collection reports with the property data stack that was already there. So some people might be used to seeing data in this different way. But we're definitely collecting it differently. I think personally, I think it's better. I'm sure there's some people, who don't feel like it's better yet because it's foreign and it's, we're just getting used to it. And the advances in technology, right? I mean, you didn't used to be able to take your iPhone and walk around the house and create a floor plan or a dollhouse or any of that, or using the tripod and things like that. I did touch on cost pressures, the scalable solutions. And I still think there's I think it's a large part reaction to the capacity we had back in 2020 and 2021. We didn't have enough appraisers to take care of the work that was there during that time period with interest rates so low. And so we need to make sure that we're able to handle those ebbs and flows of large bursts of volume. And also, I think it also comes down to the next bullet, and that's rural and complex properties, because we need to have appraisers freed up and use their expertise to handle these really difficult assignments. And if you have a borrower who's maybe, 20% LTV and they have an 800 credit score, and we just did an appraisal 2 years ago, it's foolish to think that we really need another full appraisal. So that by looking at other products and using data models and things like that, we're able to offer solutions that are aligned with the risk and that make more sense for the consumer. Because when we're the consumer, we would appreciate that. So I think we have to look at it from those perspectives as well.
And I think with the technology, I know, a lot of folks on here, no matter their role, whether lender, appraiser, AMC, on and on, yes, we have new inspection technologies, scanning, like you said, the dollhouse. But, I taught a class actually last night, which was about the analysis part, analyzing all the data, taking a look at market trends. And, even though it was a 3-hour, sometimes we teach it as a 4-hour, really a lot of the button pushing I did was about 2 or 3 minutes of work to get the data in a consistent analysis. And so this is the type of technology that is sitting on appraisers' desks right now. So no matter your role, we see all these different pressures, and appraisers are finding answers for some of these pressures in terms of having consistent reporting, consistent analyses, and things like that. So I just wanted to add that in case, for the non-appraisers here, to really give them that picture of it's technology across the board on valuers' desks.
Yeah, very, very good point. All right, so again, right, the need for speed, as they say. And faster doesn't have to mean lower quality. It can mean we find more efficient ways to deliver more credible results, meaning leveraging some of these tools so that the appraiser can spend time to do more analysis, so that if you're a lender or an underwriter, then you get this appraisal and you have less work to do, right? And in this new process also, we're looking at very high potential for less back and forth. It's the UAD 3.6 is more transparent, defensible, readable. So all of those things should help us as well to speed up the process. Now, does that mean during this transition, we're going to be flying, like that plane there? No, it means that it's going to take a bit, right, to get over that hump. We're going to feel like the big, whatever those big cargo planes are. slugging through.
Yeah.
Trying till we get to the other side. But yeah, I think that really we'll be able to meet customer expectations and be more aligned with risk. And then with better property data, we also, I don't think I put on here the actual like computer vision, or not computer vision, the image recognition, sorry. So that's super helpful as well. So we've always had, right, MLS and public records, but now we're getting like the really high resolution aerial imagery, the 360, the walkthroughs of properties that you can view from your desk, the floor plans, the doll houses, all those types of things. And so we're getting more sophisticated, and then we're getting more sophisticated with the modeling as well.
And then, oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I almost feel like that image recognition is a great example of, oh, here's a picture of the kitchen. Okay, what level of quality is this? What condition is this? Does it have a 2-car garage? Just by looking at a photo, at least a good indication of a 2-car garage. Those types of things used to be in the hands of, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and the big lenders and these big companies. And now it's at the loan officer's desk or at the underwriter's desk and at the appraiser's desk and at the AMC's desk. And so it has definitely changed the entire speed and accuracy and the role of the person too, right? Because it's now, in some respects, let me verify what this computer believes is true about this, about the property. And so I think people who are not taking advantage of it, whether it's the company, whether it's the individual, they're going to sort of be pushed behind because there's just, you're not going to be able to keep up in some ways.
Yeah, and I don't know why you would want to stick with the more manual process when you can use a faster process and then validate it. Right? I think it's just such a better method.
Agreed.
Does anyone have any? I just want to make sure you guys want to put your questions in the chat if you have any. And then has anyone here on the phone, either yourself or your company, completed a 3.6 yet? Julie has, it looks like. Only one. Oh, Justin, okay.
Oh, Justin too, yeah.
Okay, nice. All right. What was your experience? That'd be like thumbs up, thumbs down.
Right. Yeah, let us know in the chat too if you have any, if you can express yourself better that way.
Good. Oh. Okay, excellent.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Good experience from Julie. All right. Easier to read. Okay, nice. So Julie, I'm going to assume, and I'm sorry if I don't remember you from previous sessions, I'm assuming you're maybe a loan officer, maybe an underwriter if you're talking about the reading. Perhaps you're an appraiser too. Okay, QC manager. Here we go. All right. Nice. So that is good because, sometimes we all need reminders that the appraisal report is not for the appraiser. It's not for the regulator. It's for the client. And so that's nice that we're hearing from a user who's saying the report is easier to read because we do, we don't necessarily know. Okay, and Justin says getting used to it. Justin brings the appraiser perspective, getting oriented to it, but quickly getting used to it, and appreciates the order of it. Yeah, it tells a better story, doesn't it? Through. Oh, well, that's great. That's good positive feedback, and there's always up and down, upside and downside. But this is nice to hear.
It is because you go into it, if you go into it expecting to have some things to work through but really excited about the long term, like where we're going to get to, then I think that's a way to manage through it.
For sure.
And then I already kind of touched on some of the advances in technology, and really for appraisers who choose to use mobile inspection software, a lot of them, not today, but I think in a fairly short period of time, will truly be able to complete the appraisal on their iPad, like before they even get home. And so it provided that, they're, so maybe some of their analytics and things were done ahead of time and things like that. And the LiDAR measurements are great. AI assisted quality control. So many of the new software providers have installed a way to make sure that the data spec is accurately reflected before the report is delivered. So in other words, like the appraiser needs to get a green in every area showing that it's been completed, or it's been completed to the design of the spec. Then we have computer vision, which I think helps somewhat with consistency in how we look at things. And then the automated rule checking, similar to AI assisted quality. Workflow automation, that's not necessarily new. It's just going to be a little bit different. And then the structured data is in my mind amazing, because it provides that consistency. It's easy to read, right? I think you both mentioned that in some respect how it's a better output. And then cost pressures. This is another thing that's going to be interesting right now, because no one really knows. I ask this question almost every day, it seems like. Well, what are the fees going to be? Are the fees going to change? Are they going to go up? And I really don't have any answers to that. I haven't seen anyone produce a new schedule yet or anything like that. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some out of the gate, an upward trend, and then a downward trend once everyone is very fluent in this new reporting. So we'll see. And I don't know that the borrowers, what their expectation is on that, but the appraisal is a very costly part of their process. And then interest rate environments, right? When we, like in 2020 and 2021, we had pressure on pricing because we had capacity issues and that was related to staffing challenges and things like that. So really, Josh, I don't know what you think, but I don't know what the answer is on this, other than we might see a trend up and a trend down, and that's pure speculation.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. Just there is an unknown. We hear from what this person plans and that person plans and this company, but I don't think we've seen enough yet to see what is the trend.
Yeah, and this is where we can see some price relief, and that's when we have products that are reflective of risk. So that a borrower might not need to pay $600 for an appraisal. They only need, I'm just making up numbers, $200 for some automated or desktop product, because the risk is so low, right? So those things will help balance some of that out. And that may be aligned with waivers, like we would see that have been happening for years. And if that increases a little bit, then that would take some of that pressure out too. And then the need for scale. And I think we've experienced that. And so we just need to be ready for that with other products, understanding how to pivot, when we need to during really busy times. I mean, I think we're expecting a rate change at some point in time. We just don't know when, but it's just being prepared for that, leveraging technology, leveraging whatever efficiencies you can now, so that when we do have a capacity issue, that we'll be able to handle it. And then really for appraisers with the rural and complex properties, is where we really need their expertise, really need the deeper analysis. Tech tools are still going to be important. Like, I would really much rather scan that big house on the bottom than, have measured it by hand. But so I think this bullet point is really just about, this is where we really need appraisers and their professional judgment, and the scope of work here is different. So.
Yeah, I think when we take a look at our past history of the mortgage boom, so to speak, in the 2020 2021 period, I think there was some panel management problems there of whether that was appraisers in only being in certain areas and mostly in metro areas, or whether it was AMCs and lenders just not having sort of forethought to build their panels in those areas. I think there was a lesson learned. And so hopefully now, with a lot of the flexibility and the modernization, we won't see it in quite that same way. There's not so much rigidity. There's more flexibility in what technology allows, whether it even in some cases doesn't involve an appraiser traveling to an area, but maybe there's a data collector. It's not always everyone's most popular go-to solution, but sometimes it is a solution. And so having that flexibility there, and having all of the participants, the whole ecosystem, understand what it is. And it's not for every situation, but it may be appropriate for some situations. And so we really didn't have that luxury of even having any flexibility to even talk about it. And so now we can at least talk about it, and some appraisers will accept this type of assignment, some will not. And so there's better options for coverage where everybody can make some smarter decisions within this larger spectrum.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agree with you. So the key thoughts here really are, different assignments require different levels of data collection. Technology expands the options. It doesn't eliminate professional judgment. And the goal is to align the valuation approach with the level of collateral and transactional risk. And so I think if we can get, I think this sometimes doesn't sit well with appraisers, but I think when we think holistically, and why are we doing these appraisals, right? There's a person at the end, the consumer's at the end or really at the center, but they're the ones we're all trying to serve. So I think that's what we need to keep in mind. And going back, Josh, to your comments about having appraisers in an area like a rural market, I know VA and USDA are very focused on making sure that we take care of those underserved that are located in some of those areas where appraiser is not there. We need to be more creative in order to serve them. So that was just popped in my head too.
Right. I like to think of risk in that discussion, right? If you have a very high risk loan, high risk in terms of income or past credit history, whatever it is, okay, it makes sense. The lender's not going to choose some sort of flexibility where someone else collects the data. They want the appraiser seeing that because you can't have every piece of the puzzle, sort of weak. But when you're looking at good borrower history, good income verification, all these other factors, and they say, okay, could we have the appraiser look at the dollhouse view? And so then, and again, you may have some lenders that say we don't subscribe to that policy, or you may have some appraisers that say I don't subscribe to accepting those types of assignments. But there's enough room there to figure out how can we solve some of these capacity problems when it hits. So, and I think that's important that we all understand it now rather than when it hits. We need to work beforehand.
Yes. Lessons learned. And you hear me talk about 2020 and 2021 a lot, because I think it's, what do you call that? PTSD from running operations during that time. It was crazy. So we have the traditional hybrid and desktops, and this little chart just kind of walks through what the differences are with that and the inspection. And there hasn't been a ton of adoption on hybrid. I saw more desktops, I think, than hybrid. Does anyone on the call do hybrid often? And how do you feel about them? If anyone here is using them, do you like them, yes or no? And if you don't want to talk, you can put it in the chat. I'm just curious. I guess that means no.
Maybe no one relates to hybrid at all at this point.
Yeah, I don't think it's been highly used at this point, but that's to your point a minute ago, right? Is to be ready. And so I think hybrid will be something that can help inject capacity into the appraisers world when we do see an improved rate environment. So just something to think about in terms of being ready for that.
I'm all about companies and individuals saying no or saying yes, right? We all have different models. We all have different approaches to how we run our business. But I am opposed to us saying no when we don't know about things, or possibly worse yet, yes when you don't know about things, right? So we have to go into everything with our eyes open and have have education about it, just understanding the ins and outs. And maybe we say no sometimes, and yet, but we need to know about it rather than having a blanket yes or a blanket no. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I think we ran into in the 2020, 2021 capacity problems.
Yep. Yeah, so each model definitely does serve a purpose. I don't believe anyone is inherently better than another, because ultimately we still have an appraiser developing a credible result, right? No matter whether there's, not a property on-site data collection, or whether there is, or whether the appraiser does it themselves with a mobile inspection tool. It's really about them developing and following the scope of their assignment. So. We touched on this in the beginning, but property data collection tools and the emerging technologies are really, really good. So I'm not sure who out there is seeing more adoption on these mobile tools.
And I think part of I think one of the, I don't want to say hindrances or sort of kind of a roadblock right now is there's not only a lot of these new technologies for scanning and photo recognition and things, but there's also then, of course, the change in the report. And I think a lot of that is getting conflated. I mean, I would never choose this, but you could do the inspection by hand on paper as an appraiser. And then you go back to these new desktop software that is for the new report. So you could do it. So I think there are some people overwhelmed, but they're thinking it's all the same thing. And really it's here, learn how to inspect in a modern way if you're the appraiser going out to the property, and then also learn about this new report. And it's really two pieces. Yes, they're related. Yes, they're both happening at this same time. But I think if you're a user of appraisal services like an AMC or a lender, understanding if appraisers are ready to write the new report is critical, what they've done to prepare and things like this, but also just understanding what type of inspection technologies they're using. That's good, not just because you're going to say, oh, we only want people using certain technology out in the field, but it also helps to educate the borrower if they're sitting at your desk, or if there's any communication or disclosures to the borrower explaining what to expect. You can sort of, okay, hey, our panel has a, they may come out with this, they may come out with that. So I think we tend to think of some of this as, it's all about the appraiser, but it's all about the whole ecosystem and how we can all support what's going on. And, again, educate yourselves, but, talk to panel managers. Maybe there's some surveying of the panel to see what makes up our panel, who makes up our panel here, and what are they all about. So I just want to interject that there. There's a lot of different ways of accomplishing the same thing, but it helps to know what's happening.
Yeah, you got my wheels spinning on this one, because if I was going to be a panel manager today, would I want my panel to use some sort of consistency in how they did inspection, right? And then, because I to your point, right, you want to be able to have the consumers educated on the process. And so when they understand what's going to happen, but it may be this, or it may be that, or like, what are they going to, that might cause a little trepidation around, oh, well, you didn't use anything sophisticated, you drew it with your pencil, you know what I mean? And then if they are using the mobile inspection tools, do I expect a faster, potentially slightly better quality product? And if I'm surveying the panel, do I want to give more work to those who are using technology versus not?
Right. And I think there too, it may not be intentional in that way, but it may be sort of, the proof is in the pudding. It's, well, but the turn times maybe are better, just the data itself, right, in terms of what you get. So it may be sort of an indicator, and sort of how you maybe helps assign in some ways, but you'll definitely see it or not see it in the numbers at the end of the day.
Very true. That's very true. And I know I mentioned this before in one of these sessions, and that's that I'm sure everyone's surveying their panels and has been for a while. Like, are you ready for 3.6? Have you done one yet? And we've probably been asking them this whole year, trying to get a gauge on who out there is willing, ready, is already started, etc. But I do encourage anyone who's managing a panel of appraisers, whether it's lender direct engagement or AMC, that not just surveying them, are you ready, but how can we help you to modernize your practice? And maybe that's, affiliating with, helping them with training or setting up ways that you can help them as a panel, management department, or whatever your particular organization looks like. Because I think that if we want to see some consistency and we want to see some movement and growth in this direction, other than just asking them, maybe there's ways we can all collectively keep helping them. Just a thought on that. And so this kind of just looks at the inspection model and risk. And again, right, I've been kind of harping on this today because I think it's something we really need to think about. And, the factors that are going to influence product selection will be having data, how complex the property is. The market might be, extremely rural. What's the risk of the transaction? And that's the lender going to be deciding, what they want to order. And then letting the appraiser say, okay, I get it, there's not a lot of risk, but I can't do this property with this product because of these things, right? In relation to maybe the property's complexity itself. And so it's working through all of those pieces. But the consumers who we're serving, the lender is who's managing the risk, lender or the investor or both, right, are managing that risk. quality control and the appraiser's responsibilities. So with all of these tools we keep talking about and models and analytical tools, at the end of the day, the appraiser really and reviewers really are responsible for the results and understanding what they used, how it works, how they applied it, and then being able to cite that, which I think in this new report, it's really easy to cite what you've done. And most of these, not all, but most of these new appraiser software providers have built in information on the modeling and analytics so that it can be saved automatically in the appraiser's work file, explaining what that process was to get to a certain data set or the different options you have when working through that. And the appraiser's judgment will never change, right? They're always responsible again for the end result. So any of you who are working with appraisers or are appraisers, and you get the response of, well, that's what the model said, right? We can challenge that because they need to understand why the model said that and what they put into the model and why they put that specific data into it. So that's not an acceptable response. And I think I don't think we're going to struggle a ton with appraisers with this particular issue, but it's something that we need to be able to hold them accountable for, right? Because ultimately that's going to be reflective of the quality of the assignment or credibility of the assignment.
Yeah, and I think too, in terms of a lot of these new analysis technologies that appraisers have available to them, there is maybe a tendency or a desire to, okay, you're in that software, it's telling you certain information, and they save it into their work file, and there is sometimes perhaps it's a habit or just a tendency to not really understand what went on from reading the appraisal report. And so at this point, going back to the idea of how can we all help each other, understanding that appraisers are going through a lot of technological changes to say, oh yeah, it's in my work file. Oh yeah, I still have to explain it to some degree in my report on the analysis that was conducted, because the standards for report content under USPAP for appraisers has not changed, regardless of how the report format being asked to be completed has changed, or how technology is helping to sort of lift that analysis for faster and more consistent results. It's still like, oh great, I was able to do that more efficiently, but we can't skip putting the content in the report. So a user of appraisal report should still be able to understand what happened by reading the appraisal report. So that isn't changing. It's just how the appraiser gets there is being enhanced to a great degree if they choose to use that.
Yes. Yay.
Yeah, we have some celebration going on there. Great.
All right. So the operational impact of modern valuation. So in essence, I think we're circling back on a lot of these concepts are really tied together, because it comes back to reduced scheduling delays, because now you have property data collection or collector panel, and you have appraisers, so that you have more people that are able to get out there and schedule when you're working with a hybrid. And then appraisers, of course, if you're ordering desktops, significantly easier for them to fit them into their schedule quickly without having to schedule and then drive to a property. And then we definitely have better access, to property information now. Most of the tools now all have MLS integrations, and so you're able to easily bring information in. And resource allocation again, goes back to, bringing new people in, using data collectors, and then the level of products also helps with that and scalability. And with UAD 3.6, we should definitely have an improved user experience just in the consistency of the reporting and the ease of use, less revisions, easier to find information. So the things that operators need to be focused on now really are, those are the benefits, but the considerations are that, and Josh, you alluded to this too, it takes all of us. There's a lot of collaboration that has to happen. It's the entire ecosystem. This change doesn't just impact appraisers or AMCs or underwriters. Real estate agents see these, the consumers see these. There's a lot of people who need to understand how to read appraisal reports. Investors other than the GSEs, if they're going to be receiving reports in 3.6 format as well. Understanding the data validation requirements so that you don't have trouble delivering these reports. Training, I think training is massive, and we're still hearing and seeing gaps everywhere. Josh, I think you do too, but we do lunch and learns where we have real estate agents and lenders and appraisers all together, and everyone's learning what's going on with the other during this time of change. And so there's a lot for everyone to learn, and discussions need to keep happening, and that collaboration is super important. Then the process redesign, that's really, again, documenting and training your P&P and creating your P&Ps around 3.6, and then integrations, of course, can be time consuming, costly, and very important all at the same time. So.
And I like your point about the staff training item, and you really opened it up to it's really beyond staff, right? It's your partners. It's bringing them on. How many AMCs have we trained where we're also training their lender clients? How many? It's. I think people are seeing it's bigger than them, and you need to bring on all your partners so you're all on the same page.
Yes. It's bigger than them. That's a perfect way of saying it. And yeah, adoption was slower. There are reasons for that with common barriers, but personally, I think technology was really our largest holdup because we didn't have a physical way to process 3.6 sooner. So limited production was complete bomb, right? That didn't even happen. So I think we're doing okay now. I think we're starting to get past the resistance to change. Not from everybody, but I'm seeing improvement anyway, because we're up against the clock, and that's helping too. The technology is, I think, finally in a better place. It's not complete. It's still evolving and improving. But the great part about these improvements are they're happening because people are talking. These software providers are getting feedback from the appraisers. They're making changes on the fly. They're talking to the GSEs. The GSEs are putting out information. When people work together, we make things happen. And so I think that part of it that I'm seeing is really great. And then, lender readiness, I think a lot of that had to do with also technology, and then just maybe not wanting to run parallel paths with 2.6 and 3.6 for longer than necessary. I do know of one lender out there right now who is 100% moved over to 3.6. They stopped doing 2.6 already. So there's stuff happening out there now for sure. And in terms of change management, I guess I'm crazy, but I love change management. And I think that this time period right now is just gold, because the changes that are getting made are going to make all of our lives better. Even though it's hard, there's no way to look at this change and not see that it's going to make so many improvements in the process. Our industry is behind, and really on this fast moving time of improvement. So I think that is exciting. So really for success in your implementation, in my mind, there's 4 key parts: leadership, people, process, and technology. So when we're talking, whether you're leading a panel or a team or QC or a group of appraisers, whatever that is, clarity is king, right? If everybody understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, why we're doing a test in this area, exactly what that looks like, the more information people have, the better. You can't over communicate, right? It's just, it really helps people, and people hear things different ways sometimes. So having it come from multiple different places is helpful as well. And then having the support of, okay, we know this might not work the first time. It's okay, because we're going to use that first time to figure out all of the things we need to work on or change or make adjustments to. And then just continuing to educate, getting feedback, cross-functional collaboration. We talked about that today. It's critical. And the feedback loop is too. And right now, everyone's listening. I don't know if those doors will shut at some point, but right now, we have everybody's ears. If something's going wrong, let's talk about it. And then just, practice with the process. You might have to rewrite your P&P 3 times, but document it, because that's part of the clarity. It helps everyone understand exactly what's happening, the order in which it's happening, who's responsible for it, how we're monitoring our success. That's what you want to ask all the time is, what does success look like with this pilot, if that's how you're going to start, or with this, geographic area where you're going to target. And then technology, right? It is what it is. It's fantastic, but it has its issues sometimes. And so we have to have backup plans for when something doesn't go just right. I do know of another lender who will start with a 3.6, and if anything goes wrong, flip it to the 2.6, and we'll process it that way. So that way that they have a backup plan for right now while they work through all of their kinks. And that takes a lot of communication, because everyone in that everyone in that chain needs to know there could be a little hiccup on this, right? Maybe there's a day delay because we had to change it because something happened from a tech perspective, and it had to be changed.
Yeah, I mean, really, change management is the key to all of this, no matter what your role is. And change is awkward, difficult, uncomfortable, on and on, right? But it's that much more difficult and uncomfortable if you're not planning and you don't have. I like your example of the backup plan, right? You have it in place, but then you also learned from what maybe went wrong on that 3.6, and you had to convert it back to a 2.6. Okay, but now we can improve next time on all the rest of the 3.6s. So you're growing every single time, and that can be applied to an appraiser. Obviously, they can't make the decision to switch it necessarily without talking to the client, but it's from appraiser offices to lending offices to AMC offices, everybody having that learning. I'm learning more every single time mentality. And that's where we see folks having success is I'm accepting that there's change, and I'm going to learn so I can put all of this into play and make it work. That's the only way to approach it.
Yeah, exactly. And then the power of analytics and operations. And as an operator, everything is based on your data. And you said it too, when it comes to looking at, does an appraiser actually perform better? Are their quality statistics and their turnaround time and everything better because they're using modern products? You can measure all of those things. You can see in your different markets which ones are performing better. Like say you target a pilot market for your 3.6, and then all of a sudden you look at your data from 6 months ago, and the data that you're getting now from the pilot is significantly improved. Or, you just slice and dice it a million different ways, but it's easier to do that now, right? It's not as hard as it used to be. You can create all kinds of models to really dig in and see how things are performing. How is one product performing against another? Maybe every time you get a hybrid, it takes a day longer, even though we think it's going to be faster. So it's just really using all of that information to determine who, probably much like a lot of you do today, right? Who your best appraisers are and things like that. But I think you'll be able to look at things at a different level going forward. So getting ready for that is another thing I would suggest. And then being able to use that data to make decisions around your valuation process. Maybe we're not going to do hybrids because they take longer. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just using that as an example. But I think preparing for this and what success looks like in this regard. What reports do you want to have in place? What do you want to measure? It goes back to what does success look like, and having that kind of plan is super important. So I think in this slide, I just want to talk about what won't change, because we already know all the things that are changing. And hammering this home is that the appraiser is still using their judgment. They're making an independent analysis. They have to comply with USPAP, and their role is changing in the report that they're using to communicate their opinions. And maybe Josh, maybe you would have said that a little bit differently, but I think that's really, a lot of you might interact with appraisers who are like, I just want to be an appraiser and do my job the way I did before. And, you know, in a lot of respects, they are. It's the tools you're using to do them, right? It's just using things that are better, but the core is not different.
Right. I mean, you know, that report format for lending, for mortgage appraisals, it's drastically different. But like you say, the appraiser's role in, well, but what is the story we have to be telling? What do we have to be summarizing in there? What do we have to be explaining in there? It's still the same. It's the same ideas, concepts, conclusions. It all still needs to be communicated. It's a very different format, but it still needs to be communicated so the client has that information. So yeah, we have different tools in our hands for inspections, different tools in our hands to analyze all this data, different tools or formats for reporting, but the underlying foundation of an appraiser's responsibilities are not changing. And I think sometimes when users of appraisal services hear, oh, there's a new report, and oh, there's so much change in the appraisal space right now, I think there's a lot of anxiety there of like, well, do I have to sort of relearn what appraisal is? Not really, because the appraiser's foundation is still there. The standards haven't changed. Just the means of getting there for the appraiser have changed, and significantly. So there is a learning curve for them and for all of us. But what we can hold on to is that, you know, appraisal obligations, appraisal, what it's communicating and telling is still really remaining the same in the end.
Yep. I think that's all we've got. Yep. And just about, all right, 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Hey, good timing. Any last questions from folks? You can, of course, reach out to us, support@wallet.com. You see there on your screen. I want to put up a poll question. And so any feedback on this session or on all 4 sessions, the length of sessions, any additional information or support you need related to this large concept, this umbrella topic really of valuation modernization. So let us know.
In terms of So Julie, the appraiser software, or meaning going through the lender, like from a value link, or is that what you mean? Oh, appraiser software. Yes, lots of them.
Oh yeah, there's multiple software companies that are approved through the GSEs that are functioning as designed. I have heard of some that are, there's snafus, and appraisers are like, well, I can't submit it or something like that. But for the most part, it's happening. It's happening.
Mhm.
Like you heard, there's one lender entirely saying 3.6. That's all we're doing at this point. So it is successful. I think some appraisers though, um, I think in some cases they are waiting for their software that they've used for 20 years to have it, and some of those softwares are not ready, and so they're holding and holding and holding and holding. But maybe a better option would be to maybe look at what is ready at this point. But I know, and Cindy, you might be able to speak better to the software and tools available on the lender and AMC side too, in terms of submissions.
Well, I think they're going to be it depends on what platform they're on or their lender's on. So AMCs are usually going to be integrated with a number of different lender platforms. So some of them might be Cotality or Really C, or some of those, like multiple integrations. But Julie asked also, like, which ones are having a hard time, so she can pick appraisers with good software. I don't know of any one of them now that is specifically having a hard time. But if you go on the GSE site, they have a list of all of the providers that they have approved. And it wasn't super easy for them to get approved. They had to do all kinds of samples and uploads and everything to get their approval. I think for appraisers who used to use Total or a la mode, a lot of them will continue using that, and they've been going since the beginning. So they were ready with a base level version, and each quarter, I think, or maybe every few months, they're getting it up to speed where they'll have more of their tools for efficiency ready to go. ACI was probably the second largest provider that the appraisers used, and they were one of the last ones approved, but they are approved now. I can't speak to that one yet. I haven't seen it. Then we have some of the new players like Ivory. You might have seen them all over the place, and they've been approved. Were they the first approved?
I think they were the first approved. Yeah, it might have been between them and SFREP, but yeah. I believe it was Ivory. And if we're mistaken, obviously do your own research there. But
yeah, so I would look at the ones that are approved, and then I don't want to speak where I don't know 100% if there's any one particular that's having any issues. But I think we're in a pretty good place with them now.
Yeah,
much better than we were 3 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, they've made some fixes and things like that. I think, and when you look at that list, like Cindy said, you're going to see some new players and some existing players who've been around for 30 years. I mean, you mentioned Ivory. There's Appraise ending in AIZ. There's Automax. So it's an interesting time. But again, with change, it's sort of like, I think of it for appraisers anyway, as I always describe it as sort of a shopping around moment. Let's see what there is, see which works best with how I want to work and operate, because they all work very, very differently. They all have some different workflows and different approaches to gathering the data and typing it in and arranging it on the screen and things like that. So it's very, very interesting. So folks, we are just a bit over time. This, as I said, is the 4th out of 4. We started with appraisal modernization. Actually, we started with AI and the lending ecosystem. Then we moved into appraisal modernization. We talked specifically about UAD readiness. And then we've moved today to talking about modern appraisal products and some of the other sort of tying in with all of the other previous topics. So I want to thank ValueLink for bringing us in on this 4-part series. I want to thank Cindy, who hosted and led most of our presentations. And I want to thank you for joining us for the recorded version of this. To attend live and be part of the recording, great. And let other folks know, and I want you to know that you can come back in and take a look at any of these on replay anytime at your convenience by coming in just the way you did today. So I want to thank you all. Cindy, any last words?
No, just thank you. And any of you have our information, so reach out and we'd be happy to assist.
Thanks a lot, everybody. And we do have a message here. How do we get on our email list? You can do that by emailing our email, which is support@wallet.com. I'm typing it in the chat there for you, Julie. So thanks for asking about that. Just reach out to us. We can certainly keep you up to date, and you can reach out as you need more information. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.